Saturday Scrum.
And how good to have your company and how good to be here for the beginning of season 2024. G'day, my name's Tony Squires. And haven't we recruited well in the off-season?
Yeah, obviously we don't have a salary cap here at Triple M, Tone.
Exactly.
They've spent the big bucks, haven't they?
Exactly.
Well, I mean, we had to take a bit of a pay cut, but it's nice to have these guys on board regardless.
Indeed, Wade Graham is with us and Michael Chammas. Welcome, gentlemen.
Tony, good.
Tony.
Thanks for having us. It's I know I featured a little bit last year in the back end of my career, but I was out there actively looking for a new team to join once I decided to hang up the boots, and I'm very happy and confident in my decision moving forward.
That sounded like a post-game press conference.
Well, I was doing it for a long time, mate. What was it, 16 years? So this is just the start of my new career, and just stick with me, boys. All right, we'll take it to new heights.
I love it.
He's off to a flying start as well. You should have seen him in Vegas last week.
Hang on, we got the rookie giving pep talk. Hey, Wade, just before we get on, Cham, how's that transition been for you, buddy, with your first off-season?
Mate, I'm loving it. Honestly, I think it was definitely the right decision for me, just where I am at with my life and obviously with my family. I get to play golf 3 times a week now, plenty of time, drop the kids off at school, pick them up, take them to school sport now. Oh, not school sport, sorry, sports now started. And, yeah, I'm so happy. Obviously, really grateful for what I was able to do with my career and the amount of footy that I got to play. But I'm excited that I get to stay in the game in some capacity. I still have a little role there at the Sharks. I get to work with you guys talking about the footy each and every week. And, as Michael was alluding to, even the NRL took me over to Vegas to be a part of that event. So
we'll get to that in some detail a little bit later in the show. Do you ever just randomly throw yourself on the ground just to remind yourself of what it was like to be?
No. Well, I don't know if it's, and we're going to get into the footy, and I don't know if it's because of it's my first, time not playing and not being worried about my own team and my own performance, but watching the standard of footy over the opening rounds, I was looking at it going, this is crazy. Even if I wanted to, I don't know if I could have kept going. It's just been unbelievable, this start to the season. And, I'm happy to be sitting on this side of the microphone.
So good to have you here. Michael Chammas, you as well. Obviously, Reedy and you will share that seat over the season.
We will. Well, he's not happy about it, Reedy.
No.
He wants to be here every week, but I think his wife pulled him in the line and said, you got a family to look after, and he's got to coach his son's soccer team, so you'll have to bear with me every second week.
I love it. Were you affected by the earthquake in Sydney?
Well, I live out west. I live very close to where it happened, but I didn't feel. I'm really disappointed. I'm the only guy in Western Sydney who didn't feel anything yesterday.
Well, whereabouts in Western Sydney do you?
So, edge of the mountains, basically. Foot of the mountains, all the way out in Glenmore
Really?
Park.
How good.
Yeah, where you abandoned and now you live in the Shire.
Well, I actually bought a house in Glenmore Park before Penrith punted me, and then I had to...
I bet you don't have it anymore.
No, I sold that.
No, it's in rubble after the earthquake now.
I didn't know you were that far out, Chammas. My respect for you is going through the roof.
Oh, I appreciate it, mate. A couple of Penrith's finest here. Girds, you...
Hey, Chamo, maybe the reason you didn't feel it is because you sleep on that waterbed. It's like, suspension, and you just sort of wobbled away and the walls were falling down around you.
Well, I just built a new house, It's been in it for about 6 months. I rang the builder and said, you can put earthquake proof on your website, mate, because I didn't feel a thing.
We didn't feel anything east of Anzac Parade either, just here to tell you. It was all okay in Bronte. Look, we have so much to get to, just 2 hours to share with you today. There's been some great footy already, which we'll have a look at. We're going to get to the only sin, really, from Sin City, the Spencer Leniu and the war of words that's now broken out between Latrell Mitchell and Anthony Mundine. That soon, but next... Melbourne and that remarkable round 1 record continues. This is the Saturday Scrum, doing it for King G Workwear. Today's gladly for you as Triple M rocks the footy on a Saturday. Arvo, Tony Squires, Ryan Girdler, Wade Graham and Michael Chammas. The record is quite remarkable, isn't it? 22 in a row that the Melbourne Storm have won in the opening round. It's just quite unbelievable. And they've done it the past couple of years against, I think, runners-up. Had to go to Golden Point to do it, but they've done it now against the reigning premiers, Panthers, and they did it without key personnel, Ryan Girdler. They were sensational. Even though it was a bit messy in that first half, it was a good game of footy.
I don't know. I think sensational is a bit of a loose term. I mean, their defence was sensational, Tone, but, I think they completed it like 68%. But everyone says, Melbourne are hard to beat in round 1. Melbourne are just hard to beat, and especially when you go down there and they play with that sort of intensity. I just got to give a lot of credit to their outside backs. I mean, Penrith, even though they're a little bit clunky with the football, their edge defence, Melbourne Storm, was just exceptional. Some of the decision-making from some of those outside backs, I know we don't give them a lot of credit for defence, but I think it was Coates and Smith and those guys coming in at the right time. Like Penrith were throwing a lot of shape at them, and they just kept on, coming in, making good decisions, shutting down opportunities. So, look, it was a great effort. It was a brave effort from the Melbourne Storm, and I think all the sides that have won this weekend, have shown that. They've shown that they've gone out there with a real attitude around their defence, and they're going to, they're willing to scrap for 80 minutes, and that's exactly what Melbourne did. Yeah, it was a great contest and a great win for the Storm.
It really is a remarkable record. 22 straight opening wins, and he's had like different sorts of teams. They've won in different ways over the years, different oppositions, and it's just, you can't take it away. It's just a testament to Craig Bellamy as a coach. To win early in the season, it's pretty basic fundamentals you need to look after. You need to look after your discipline because you can't put yourself under too much pressure. You need to have patience because you're not going to be as sharp as you will with your execution and find the tries you may find in the back end of the year when everything's clicking, and you need to defend well. And all that stuff is mentality stuff. It's not about how good you are as a player or how good you are as a team. It's about what you're willing to do in your preparation and what you're willing to do during the game to just get your job done. And that's what Craig Bellamy is known for: his hard work, his discipline, and his ethics. And it's held him in good stead over his whole career. And I think if he was to finish up this year, like we've been saying it for a lot of years now, that it might be his final year, but to have 22 consecutive, round one wins, it's just another little tick and record in his book that'll never be touched.
Yeah, it's extraordinary.
I think even with Penrith, I think they've had a bit of a case of deja vu. Last year, they started pretty slow as well. They lost the World Club Challenge at home to St. Helens. They weren't impressive there at all. Then they played Brisbane in round one, lost at home. They do the same thing this year, lose the World Club Challenge to Wigan over there, come back, have to travel again to Melbourne, and really probably struggle to score points in both of those games. So this is not unfamiliar territory for Penrith. I think they're a team, given they have so many rep players at the end of the year that go off and come back after representative football late into the preseason. They're notoriously slow starters, Penrith, in terms of where they get to at the end of the season. They're nowhere near that standard where we saw the other teams, as Wado mentioned at the start, like the Roosters played at a level heading into finals football that you'd expect from a team. So I don't think it's panic stations for Penrith, but it shows you just how impressive Melbourne is.
Yeah, even their big names were putting the ball down in the first half, the Panthers, weren't they? And they did struggle. Like, obviously didn't get any points last night, didn't get any points in the second half of the World Club Challenge either. But
what it shows, Tony, is they're not willing to build their game at the moment, and that's what was really good about the Melbourne defence. And I think to a degree the Sharks did the same thing against the Warriors. Sometimes, as Wade spoke about, you can be looking for shortcuts in round one, and your combinations aren't where they need to be. And Penrith were like that last night. Like there was opportunities there where Nathan could have built the game and trusted their process. But in actual fact, the Storm were sort of getting up in their face and forcing them to make the play, and they were always looking to deliver that big blow, and it just wasn't there for them. So, but as Chamo said, no panic for the Panthers.
Taylor May looks like he's going to be a great replacement for Crichton there in the centres. He was just dynamic.
Yeah, we just felt, as Gerd said, that the combination and their structures weren't quite where they normally are, and they weren't pulling apart the defence as we come to expect. But Taylor May almost individually, towards the end of the game, just felt no matter how good Melbourne were defending as a team, just get him the ball because he's going to create something about how hard he was running, how many times he'd make opposition defenders miss him. And, certainly for a bloke who's been out for, close to 18 months?
12 months,
yeah,
World Club Challenge.
Yeah, so phenomenal.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say, boys, that he's probably the most powerful left centre they've had since the early 2000s. Just leaving blokes in his wake like the good old days, honestly.
He does remind me a lot of you. The try that was disallowed where he goes down the sideline, kicks it in there for Sonny Luke to score, but it goes back to the obstruction. Well, we happy with that as one of those rules, it's going to happen once it's called back.
Yeah, it's going to happen all the time. As soon as you catch on the inside, and although he ran through, the lead runner ran through, and there was a bit of time And then Jerome went around him. That's the rule is you can't catch on the inside and run around the player. So it probably really had no effect on the play that I thought. But if it happens up close to the try line, it's going to get pulled back like 100% of the time. So it was disappointing because it was such an exciting try after that, and you just knew it was going to be. Well, it was a massive moment because that gets disallowed, and then they go up the other end, Melbourne, and they find their points.
Right, exactly.
So
it puts the great kick in.
It was a 12-point swing, but I do think. See, I'd rather that one be no try, and then the one in the other game where Denny Levi ran into Frizzell on purpose on Tyson. Sorry, when Kalen Ponga made the break, because it was like, well, Levi was never going to get there. We all knew he was never going to get there, and he was just playing the rule because he knew the rule. Where that sort of play just broke down, and then Luai just went on with it. And it had to get pulled back, but.
I feel like, boys, we're getting to the point where the referees, like it's been black and white till the dust settled a little bit with those obstruction rulings. And I kind of get the feeling that the refs are going to take back a little bit of discretion. And I think that's the perfect opportunity to do it. As Wado said, like, I think it really could have been exercised in that night's game with that situation, because that's going to stop players from putting themselves in that situation. As soon as a player gets done like that, and you can see that he's made a bad defensive decision, but then he falls anyway because he was never going to get there. As soon as we started sort of taking those guys, the decision favouring what they're doing in those situations away from them, you'll see players stop doing it. And that's what we could have done the other night. There was an opportunity there to say, well, you know what, Luai, he got on the outside. It was a poor decision. We're going to use our discretion here. That's a fair try. Then next time, I'd say, Jerome probably thinks differently. And that's a way we can stamp it out of the game. But I feel like we're going back to that place where refs are now going to start using their discretion, and so are the guys in the bunker, as opposed to, those black and white rulings.
And by and large, the players seem to be adopting the new interpretations that were made this year. Well, the obstruction, obviously, there was one penalty last night for the kicker getting the road there. So they're kind of doing it right.
Well, 100% they are, but Gerds is right. As soon as you do sort of draw a line in the sand and players understand what they can and can't get away with, well, they'll start making decisions. So if we watch every game, right? We watch every game multiple times, whether it's ourselves watching it at home or our coaches cutting it up for us or the extra stuff. So players know exactly, what they can and can't get away with on the field. And in a moment, that split second moment when you're making a decision, can I get an advantage for my team or can I influence the referee or the game? You're going to take that on for sure because, we're out there to win. So, if Gerds is right, if the refs make some discretion and say, well, we're going to make the decisions based on what we think was going to happen, I'm happy with that.
That's all well and so I was going to say, Gerds, it's all well and good, right? The discretion part of it, as long as the referees are consistently applying that discretion, and you don't get differentiating opinions on what is an obstruction and isn't, because the moment that starts to happen, then you're going to have the clubs up in arms saying, well, hang on a second. In that game, you allowed this, but in this game, you're not allowing it. That's why we went to an era of black and white, because the referees weren't consistent on applying that discretion.
But I think players know now, generally, when they've done an obstruction, because you just see players stop now. You can see it how many times. It happens 3 or 4 times in the game where miscommunication or the plays ran wrong, and you just see the ball player stop. Or the defensive man, the whole line stops and pretty much surrenders. So players know it's just some instances you just can't help but take that advantage, and the refs, for the majority, and I've got to give them a rap. I'm happy to jump on them when I think they're not going great. But I think the opening round, particularly in Vegas, that first game, Ashley Klein, I thought he did an exceptional job.
Yeah, I agree, Wado. I think they've done a pretty good job for the entire first round so far. But, referees and that, with their experience, they've been in the game long enough to know when someone's generally trying to make an attempt to make a tackle. And you can see that with some of these. And if you would have, Jerome Hughes tried to get on the outside or get around in any way, shape or form to make the play on Luai, if you could see that and he was impeded, well, then you can make the call. But if he's actually not, and you don't get to see if he was actually trying to make a genuine attempt, well, then that's the situation where they need to go, you know what? We're not going to be played. Here's an opportunity to try and, stamp this out of the game. So let's do that and make a couple of those calls. And then we'll see how the coaches actually react to that. Because I think Ivan Cleary said it best. He said, well, I think they asked him what he thought of the obstruction. He said, well, for the obstruction ruling to come into play, I think there needs to be an obstruction.
Let's just be happy, I think, here in NRL we're talking about these minor grey area issues and we're not talking about the Super League refereeing, because we could be here all day solving no problems.
Absolutely. Tui Kamakamitha obviously doesn't score many tries. If he was trying to sell that thing, when he dropped the ball blatantly over the line, I felt for him though.
Front rower. Opportunity to just roll over, and he didn't even need to change hands.
Why did he do that?
He got excited. He knew he was there, and the big boys. Well, I will say in Melbourne, the big guys score more often than not because of the play, their style of play. But wow, opportunity to get off the nudie round one as a front rower. He'll be looking at that video going, so disappointed.
Do you think he genuinely believed that he scored, or was he just trying to sell it?
I think he was hoping he scored.
It's great acting if it was. I honestly believed him.
Have you seen the split vision of when he's celebrating, like trying to sell it, but then Craig Bellamy's in the head blowing up? It's brilliant. If you haven't seen it, get on your socials and try and find that split vision, because it's just the perfect timing.
We'll try to put it up for you as well. There you go. The record continues. Melbourne Storm beating Panthers 8-0 in round one season 2024. As I said, the only stain in Vegas really for the NRL was the claims of racism. Spencer Leniu. We'll get to that story next on the Saturday Scrum.
Scrum.
Beautiful day for football and evening. I anticipate the Eels taking on the Bulldogs, and it's the Titans and the Dragons, two teams with new coaches. That is this evening. We'll have a look at those games in some detail a little bit later on. New Roosters recruit Spencer Leniu. He's apologised for the racist slur he made against Ezra Mam in Vegas. Now, he'll still obviously be punished, as he should, by the NRL. That will happen next Monday, but it's sort of become a growing battle of definitions, hasn't it? Now, Anthony Mundine has boldly entered the fray. Michael Chammas, what's the latest?
Yeah, look, there's been a bit of a war of words between Anthony Mundine and Latrell Mitchell over the last couple of days. Now, Anthony Mundine took to social media about 24 hours ago to say that this wasn't racism and that people needed to toughen up. And Latrell fired back, basically saying anyone who believes this needs to do better. It's left Anthony Mundine going on to social media and a pretty vicious attack of Latrell Mitchell. He said, listen, let me educate you on a few things that should have been quite apparent to you. When it came to exposing racism and bigotry in sport, I was the pioneer. I paved the way. In fact, I was giving a voice and standing up for Aboriginal people's rights when you were still in nappies. I bled for the cause. So when I have something to say about racism in sport, I've earned the right to say it. Trell, please, just focus on your footy. You've been underperforming far too long and been lucky to have Cody by your side to hold your hand. Earn the right to talk before you start trying to disrespect the OG of the game. Remember, despite what you might think, you're no Greg Inglis and you're certainly no Anthony Mundine. Despite your disrespect, I want you to succeed and excel. Your success fills me with pride and honour, but you need to learn to respect those who have paved the way for you. Peace, the man.
Peace.
It's quite a response from Anthony Mundine, isn't it?
It absolutely is. It's a complete slap in the face for Latrell Mitchell, and that obviously is going to be an ongoing thing. Okay, but it does call into question the whole range of things that are going on here with this timeline. But, is it racist, which is the original campaign from Anthony Mundine? It's not racist if a person, to quote him, is black or brown fella. If it comes from him to another, then, as he says it, that's not a racist thing. Now, I'm not sure if that's the case, because surely if the person to whom it's being said feels vilified, then that is the definition of racism, isn't it?
Well, I've no doubt Ezra Mam feels vilified. Having got to know Spencer over a number of years, do I think Spencer Leniu is a racist person? No, I don't. Has he crossed the line with what he said? Yes, he has. Clearly he has. And he will be dealt with by the NRL Judiciary on Monday night. I don't think, and this speaks to the naivety of Spencer Leniu and to some of the comments that were made to Brent Reid after the game on Triple M and to Danny Weidler on 9, to refer to it as fun and games. I don't think he realised the magnitude of what had just happened and what we had all started speaking about the moment that Ezra Mam filed a formal complaint saying that he was called a monkey.
Yeah.
I think in Spencer Leniu's world, and this doesn't justify it, there have been names called among players over a number of years, and he has been the victim of that, and it's been play on in the player's mind. So I think what he struggled to realise is, why is this not play on? Why is this now being called out when I have heard X, Y, and Z being said over the years? Is he isolated in this? No, I don't think he is. But if a player, as you said, feels vilified by what is being said and he wants to take that further, which Ezra Mam has done, well, we find ourselves in the situation that we are in now. And Latrell Mitchell, I applaud Latrell Mitchell for standing up for Ezra Mam and standing up for what he believes is right and wrong. Where I think it started to get murky is Latrell Mitchell then taking the role of Judiciary chairman onto his list of portfolio and saying, well, that's not his role in this situation. If he wants to stand up for Ezra Mam, like Nicho Hynes did, and Nicho Hynes did respectfully, then that's fantastic. I think he has every right to do so. But to turn around and put pressure on Andrew Abdo and the NRL to suspend Spencer Leniu for a certain amount of time, I think someone suggested 8 to 12 weeks, and he replied on social media and then some. That's where I think the NRL needed to send a message out to the players and say, hang on a second, you are not allowed to comment about this. We have processes in place within the game that we don't hang someone out to dry before he gets a proper trial, and that is on Monday night. And I think South Sydney said to him that you, by all means, defend Ezra Mam. Stand up for your friend, stand up for what you believe is right, but it's not your role to then turn around and say, this guy should be rubbed out of the game for X amount of time.
Yeah, but they don't have to listen to him. I mean, they know what their roles are. There's some good leadership at the NRL these days. I mean, he can have his opinion, but the NRL and the Judiciary just don't need to take it into consideration. That's the best way to handle that.
Yeah, but you know how it is.
Do you think it puts
look,
pressure on them in relation to getting the fans? Or do you think it just gets the fans offside in relation to if the punishment's not as severe as Latrell thinks it should be?
I think the NRL, and look, this is not a decision for Andrew Abdo or Peter V'landys. It's going to be the Judiciary panel members who decide on what the punishment will be. Yep. But you can see the noise. This has gained momentum day by day with every little bit of detail that comes out. There is enormous pressure on the NRL to get what people believe is the right outcome. Now, if you cast your mind back 12 months, Marcelo Montoya was handed a 4-week ban for a homophobic slur.
Yep.
Where does this sit now, Wado? Because it's
sorry.
No, even Gerds. Like I don't know.
I just don't think they're going to get it right. I don't, because they're just not going to be able to please everyone like they couldn't with the Montoya situation. You're going to have some people that think it's play on. You're going to have some people that think he should get life. What they need to do is, apply common sense to it and actually understand that there's two human beings here that need to be looked after, both of these guys. You spoke about Spencer and obviously Ezra. They're guys that are out there and in the heat of the battle, something's happened that I'm sure that Spencer regrets. But, some of the flack that he's copped as well is probably, seen as unfair. So both of those guys need to be looked after in this situation. And I just think that a statement also needs to be made that this sort of behaviour is unacceptable, given the fact that it can't be part of our game moving forward. But at the same time, you can't rub the guy out for like half a season or 12 months. The guy's put his hand up, said that he's sorry, apologised, taken accountability for his actions, and I think that should be also taken into consideration.
And what? Speaking of people close to Spencer Leniu, what he's pleading guilty to is the fact that he did say the word monkey. He's not pleading guilty to being a racist or that he meant the word in a racist with any racial connotation.
Was part of that 60s pop band. I mean, it's not really that word has triggers and has had for a long time.
Well, that's the point I'm making around the naivety of Spencer Leniu. Now, I don't want to disparage people and where they come from and what's commonly said in the areas that they grew up in. But in the football, from what I understand, in the football that he's played over a number of years, he has been the one called different names over these and has never said anything about it. Now, that doesn't make it right.
No, because I don't think what happens on the field stays on the field works anymore. We're in 2024. That just doesn't work anymore, and things are going to be heard, and the behaviour has to change.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's valid. I understand where he's coming from. I don't. What have you made of it over the time?
Oh well, I think again I applaud Ezra straight away for reporting the incident. If he heard it and he, like you said, he felt he needed to take action straight away. That's the first decision that was the right decision. I agree that Spencer's reaction, I think he didn't understand the gravity of what had happened, and his initial reactions, after the game, particularly in the hotel after the game as well. he still then I don't think he understood through that naivety the how big this situation was going to blow up. And then, you track the story for a few days. He then comes out with an apology. He's obviously been explained the situation, has some sort of realization of what the next process is going to look like, or where he has made a big mistake. And again, I commend all the players who got around Ezra to support, because that's what our game's about. It's about supporting people when they need it. And Latrell has been such a big voice in this for years. He called that fan out last year at Penrith, and the game's done a great job supporting him over years. And that's what Ezra needs. He needs players supporting him and having his back, and that's who we are as a game as well. This next sort of part for me it's a little not distasteful. It's just hard to see happen. Like two proud Indigenous men, Latrell and now Chock, going at it. Like I'd rather, and to be honest, they've both they're both right. They've both been at the forefront of their culture and their people and promoting, the Indigenous culture, and they're proud men. And now that it's happening publicly, I don't like that sort of fallout. I hope it doesn't drag on, and I hope they can have a conversation and really get aligned themselves, because we don't need, this situation is already hard enough to talk about as it is. And as Gerd said, there's never going to be a right way to navigate through this, because you're never going to be able to look after everyone. But this next part, I hope that those two men can get together and sort it out, so that we don't need those guys publicly going back and forth with each other, because that has just as big as effect, I think, on the game than the incident itself.
Wait, you're absolutely right. I mean, Latrell has every right to say what he said. I mean, whether by design or situation, he has, as you said, become a spokesperson for his people.
They've earned the right, both of those guys. And like Wade said, if they can come together for their community, the Indigenous community, and be aligned, I think it just shows just a lot of strength. And also, if they can find a way to come up with a resolution with their relationship, it just shows maturity, and it actually shows that everyone's on the same page and wants the same outcome, which is exactly what they want. They just don't agree on part of the topic.
What makes me a little bit sad is that, and I get it, Ezra Mam was hurting. Now, as I understand it, Spencer offered to pay for himself to fly to Brisbane to make a personal apology to him, and Ezra said, no, thanks. That's kind of a bummer, because what is key for these things is education, is to actually look at both sides and how did this happen, how did we get to here, and how can we not get here in the future?
Yeah, but I'm okay with that at the moment, right? Because he's had a big enough emotional reaction to this, and a feeling that it's it's obviously had a big trauma with him, and it's going to take time for him to get through that trauma. So I don't know if he, and I can respect Spencer wanting to bury that hatchet and trying to have a chat man to man to maybe own up to the mistake and move on with his life, but Ezra, I don't think, has to accept that straight away. I'm not saying down the track there might not be an opportunity when there's been, he goes through this grieving process and understands and comes through the other side of it, because it is going to be a process for him because of how much of effect it had on him as it's obviously had on him. So I get it. I get Spencer wanting to put his hand up, own his mistake, talk to Ezra man to man, but I also get Ezra not being accepting of that right now, and hopefully maybe possibly down the track where there's a little bit of more capacity for forgiveness and.
Well, I think the events that transpired in that 24 hours after it has made it difficult for Ezra Mam to want it, because of what was said on field about it being just fun and games, and the fact of what happened in the hotel corridor, which is what you alluded to. The two team rooms were side by side there in Resorts World, and there were some words exchanged. And Spencer was fuming almost as much as Ezra was, because what he couldn't get through his head was why this was becoming an issue, why the Broncos were, the words I was told, were snitching in regards to what was being said. So at the initial reaction from Spencer is this is not on as well. So Ezra's probably thinking any attempt to come up and apologise isn't genuine, and it may be a show just to try and make the situation that you're in, try and make it look as though you are being sympathetic, that you are apologetic, and that will help you when you front the judiciary on Monday night, but also in a public relation battle. Now, I don't think Spencer is doing that for that reason. What I think has happened is the people around Spencer have said to him, as you said, this is the magnitude of what has just happened. Take it all in, realise what has happened, and work out what you want to do next, because there are significant ramifications for his reputation going forward.
Yeah, all right. Well, you mentioned the judiciary, and it's terrible to try to boil this down to punishment, but that's what's going to happen on Monday. What do you think will, in terms of weeks?
Your guess is as good as mine, Tony. I think, given last year Montoya got 4 weeks for a homophobic slur, I think this one will be 4 to 6 weeks. I can't see a half a season ban as Latrell Mitchell has called for. I don't see the NRL going down that path.
All right, there you have it. This is the Saturday Scrum. We do it all for King G Workwear.
Saturday Scrum.
And it's so good to be with you for another season, which has got off to a flyer. Let's absolutely be honest. My name's Tony Squires. I'm with Ryan Girdler, Wade Graham and Michael Chammas, just reminding you of what's going on. The Raiders over Newcastle 28-12, the Sharks 16, the Warriors 12, and of course Melbourne continuing that amazing record of winning 22 opening round games in succession, 8-0. They were too good for the Panthers. Plenty of footy to come. Obviously this evening the Eels taking on the Bulldogs, and it'll be the Titans and the Dragons. Now, Ryan Girdler and I weren't invited to Vegas, so we're basically going to take a back seat here as the two gentlemen on my right tell us exactly how it was. And from our point of view, from watching it from Australia, it was terrific. Those games were an event. You know, it's one of the things you go to the pub to watch. It looked fantastic. It was brilliant from an Australian perspective. You were there, Wader. Was there a moment where you thought, wow, this is actually big?
Oh, man, I pinched myself the whole time when we were over there. I just couldn't believe that we were opening the NRL season in Vegas. Like, if you'd have told me, when the whispers first started beginning, what this time last year, next year we're going to play a double header in Vegas to kick off the season, you sort of say, okay, like, good luck. And, you know, what do you pass as a success? Like, just having the event there, putting it on, making it run, getting it done, that for me would already be a success. But to see the fan fest, the amount of Australians that travelled over, the amount of English that were there, and even, you know, the first couple of days, bumping into the Americans or jumping into the cabs, they'd hear your voice and they recognised that you were here for an Australian event. They didn't quite know what the event was, or if it's rugby or the event, but they knew there was an Australian event on because of how many people were there. And you know, Fremont Street in particular stands out. That was the season launch. It was unbelievable there. And so we got there on the Tuesday, and it was a bit of, there wasn't as much traction because there wasn't as many Australians or English there. But by the time Thursday, Friday rolled around, like the flocks had come in, everyone was just pumped to be there. And I give it a massive success, and congratulations to Peter V'landys, Andrew Abdo, and their whole team, you know, all the people behind the scenes, that, you know, all the amount of effort and work it would have took to put the event on. And anyone that witnessed it and watched it, if you get an opportunity over the next 5 years, even if your team's not playing, if you get an opportunity, I suggest you get over there if you can, because it's something not to be missed, and it's great to be a part of.
As a journo, Michael, obviously there's scepticism as part of the job, but when you went there, what did you see that impressed you?
Yeah, see, I did 2 weeks over there, Tone. I actually went over from the very beginning with South Sydney to San Diego, spent 5 days with them there, then went to LA with the Roosters for 4 nights, and then eventually went over to Vegas. So I got to see what it was like actually on the West Coast, to see if there was any interest. Now, to be fair, no, that people weren't talking about it in LA or in San Diego. You get to Vegas, though, and you know, because all the Australians have arrived. But it was just the buzz because of the Australians. I commend the NRL for what they did. I think it's been a huge success. But you also have to keep in the context of the reality of the situation with America. You weren't going to convert all these American fans into diehard rugby league fans in one game. It's going to take a process. It's going to take years and years to actually convert a small portion of their population to actually be interested in watching rugby league, especially when the time zone means that most of the games are on in the middle of the night anyway. So that wasn't going to be the success for me. The television ratings of 61,000, the average crowd for the first game, and 44,000 average in America, that wasn't going to be the barometer of whether or not this was a success. 15,000 travelling Aussie fans, record numbers on TV back home, and everyone, as you guys were, having a case of FOMO, watching that, thinking, I want to go next year. And that's going to be the success of it, being able to monetize and get a deal with Las Vegas Tourism to try and get as much money as possible, because that's where the money's coming from. I don't know if the gambling revenue is going to come out and the benefits of it for a few years anyway. I just think it's a success from a from a PR point of view, the AFL would have been sitting back, and I know this, sitting back watching, thinking, I wish that was us.
Yeah.
And that's from a rugby league point of view, that's a huge win. Now, personally, I thought it was a great experience. I thought the teams handled the week really well. I have a little issue, though. Unfortunately, I had tickets, boys, to go and watch Lionel Messi play. And Nick Politis called me the day I arrived in Los Angeles saying, hey, mate, we're going to actually invite you into the Inner Sanctum. I want you to come to dinner tonight in Beverly Hills with our team. Bulldog Richie from the Telegraph was there. Indeed. Come to dinner in Beverly Hills, and tomorrow we're going to the Clippers. Go with the boys to the Clippers. Now, he didn't know at the time, and I didn't have the heart to say anything because you don't disrespect Nick Politis. But I was going to watch LeBron James' son play college basketball the first night, and I had tickets to watch Messi the next day. I brushed those guys. I couldn't do it. Is that the right move? You can't do it.
You brushed the Roosters.
No, I brushed Lionel Messi.
That is 100%, mate. That is 100% the right move, mate.
Could have been the last.
No, it's the right move to make, mate. To be successful, you got to make sacrifices, Chammas. You made a good sacrifice there,
well,
mate.
It was a pretty good dinner, to be fair. In the Clippers
Who's going to give you all the inside info if you start brushing those guys?
Well, that's what I thought. I was sitting there waiting, watching Broncos at the time, and when Nick calls you can't say sorry, mate. I don't think he knows who Lionel Messi is.
So that was your decision, whereas my choice was whether to watch it at the Bondi RSL or the Diggers Club. I mean, honestly,
I think now that this first one's done, and again, getting the event up and running for me, that was a tick and success straight away.
Yeah.
The enjoyment and how big the event was once I was over there and understood how historic it was, that was just icing on the cake. I think over the next few years, when the NRL's had an opportunity to iron out some creases, we're probably going to market a little bit harder in the next few years. But for a start, what a start, and again, kudos to the management for getting it done.
Hey, I know, Chamo, the numbers on TV and broadcasting weren't fantastic, but there was 40,000 people turned up to the game. I know there was a big contingent of those travelled from over here, but was there many locals that just turned up? And Wado, you said that you're walking around town and people noticed you're Australian, you have a bit of a conversation. Did you get any feedback from some of the local community that they went to the game and had an experience?
Well, James Graham's got a great story. I'm not going to steal his thunder.
Come on, do it.
It's about so I worked the first game down in the suites and in the corporate areas as a part of the NRL. Call it what you want, guys. Call it what you want. So I was down there. And then the second game, I was up in the broadcast doing the Roosters and the Broncos game. But James Graham had a chat with an American athlete, and the one thing that blew their mind was how the game just continued. There was one moment when Croker was split, and they came out and they just taped him up, and he just got on with it. Because in all the sports over there, if there's an injury, it's a whole timeout, right? They stop the whole game. Trainers come on the field, they get him off, and the Americans they couldn't comprehend about, well, he's hurt, he's bleeding, why is he still playing? And then Jimmy was just explaining, well, that's just what we do in our game. We just, as he would say, we just crack on with it, lad. And then that's the continuity of our game, the aggression, how physical it was, and the fact it never stopped. That is what I think would have caught any Americans' eyes if they were watching our sport.
Obviously, it was always an overreach to think that, rugby league suddenly would become the most popular sport in the US. That's just not going to happen. And that obviously is the example of that is the fact that they stayed with college basketball on Fox Sports 1 rather than, and delayed the coverage on Fox Sports 1 of that game. But it is, as you say, about, I guess, bucket list thing for fans to want to get there. That's going to be amazing. So where does that leave us in terms of what has to happen if indeed it does go to the 5? Is the teams have to be quality.
They have to.
So is it either you go the top 8 or is it Champions League, the top 4 each year get to do it? The trouble is then you've got the same fans, maybe not getting as many. But what's the plan?
I think you have to rotate it. I know Nick Politis and the Roosters and Manly want to go back next year, but the success of it was the fact that all those people were there for the first time with their teams enjoying the week. How many of those Roosters fans or Manly fans who paid all that and to be honest, it's bloody expensive. I paid $11 for a bottle of water. That's what, 15, 16 Australian dollars.
That's more expensive than the beers.
I know. It was crazy. So how many of those are going to pay to go again? It's a bucket list thing. You need to send other clubs so that you get their fan base going over as well. And I know they don't want to be rude to the clubs who put a lot of effort in to go in the first year, but they have to split around. And how they do that, I think there's a lot of talk around the Melbourne Storm going over next year. Penrith have put a massive case in because they haven't got a home ground from next season with the stadium getting redeveloped, so they are putting their hand up to go next year. The Raiders think they've got a natural synergy with the Las Vegas Raiders, the NFL team, and the Warriors, who, I think you'll get a lot of fans from New Zealand.
That's for me is where the clubs have got to do a bit of work if they want to go. They need to create a proper reason why they should be a club there. They need to work out a reason why we can partner with someone over in America and an existing, whether it's an existing fan base or an existing person or more than just I'm going to bring over our fans. Like, this is the reason we're going to get traction over there because of. Like, if you want to say the Raiders, the Canberra Raiders.
Didn't Manly and South Sydney say that because they want to get Russell Jackman?
Yeah, well,
Russell Crowe
Jackman.
and Hugh Jackman to the game. Unfortunately, neither were there.
But that's the thing. Like being honest, clubs, if you want to go over, you need to get creative. Get out there, try and force the NRL's hand. And so it's just because the NRL's driving the vehicle, right? But they need help as well on the outside, and you just more people trying to solve the same problem can help in this situation.
Yeah, I think the NRL's already started to look to the future. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if this continues to be success. This will outgrow Las Vegas. Well, it'll tire in Las Vegas. Well, there's already talk about potentially going to Miami and selling the actual event to another city and making as much possible, leveraging the interest from potentially LA, Miami, different cities in America.
Dubai.
Well, it's funny, Chammo, that you spoke at the start of this whole segment about Messi and the MLS over there and how that game has actually been able to sort of, I don't know how long ago they started with soccer. It's taken a long time, but maybe they need to look at that model because, that's now got a real presence over there in the US. It's got, David Beckham. It's got a lot of those high-profile, guys have come over from England or different parts of Europe and bought clubs and actually I think they've got a little bit of a footprint now, so maybe they need to look at the model that they've used and getting some alignments with, as you said, some other clubs over there. They've already got a domestic league over there and just seeing, how they can really get some traction from the event that they've created.
Yeah, indeed. Well, it was a good news story, apart from those of us who remained in Australia.